So Thomas Edison once said, if we did all the things that we are capable, literally, of doing, we would simply astound ourselves. And that's the truth. I shared that quote last week, and I'm going to share it every week of this series of talks on success. Literally astound ourselves by the incredible qualities and gifts that we haven't maybe even recognized yet. The power within us, that infinite power that is us, as us, is so powerful and is always, as the beautiful sharing that Reverend Carol just did, it's always so powerful that it can change any situation, any condition. And the power within us may be like the ancient seed that was found at an architectural dig a number of years ago. The architects calculated it to be thousands of years old. It was dry and appeared to be dead. But they planted it anyway. This is in a book that I'm reading on this. They watered it, nurtured it with sunlight, and the strangest thing happened. This dormant seed took hold, and it started to sprout. And it was ready to spring forth. The manifestation, if given the right environment. This was an old, 1,000-year-old dried up seed that most people would throw away. But we have that within us, that same kind of a seed within us, just waiting for us to be aware of it, to recognize it, just waiting so it can spring forth through us, as us, into our lives. Our focus is on cultivating that power within. And we've labeled this month the Success Month. Why not? Let's be successful. Let's live a life of absolute joy and success, and whatever that means to you. And think about that for a moment. We went through this last week, the first talk. What does success mean to you in your life? And usually it's something that is etheric rather than solid. You know, it's more of a feeling, a way of being in life. So, however we define success, this is the month, and it's always the month, to astound yourself. Why not? By recognizing and aligning with your inner creative, dormant power that's there waiting to succeed. Lying there like that 1,000-year-old seed, just waiting for the attention, the right conditions. I'm telling you, the conditions are right here and right now. There's never going to be a better time. Right here, right now. And this series must come with a warning label. Practicing these principles requires something from you. You might even call it work. And I love this statement from Meister Eckhart. 12,000, yeah, late 12,000s. The seed of God is in us. Given an intelligent and hard-working farmer, it will thrive and grow. God, whose seed it is, and accordingly its fruits will be God-natured. That's from 12. This is new thought, ancient wisdom. This has been around as long as man has been around. The spiritual truth of our being. And as the workshop will be today, science is proving it. They don't understand it, but every experiment is successful. And they're proving consciousness is a thing. It is the only thing. And to me, God is consciousness, it's pure consciousness, and we're all consciousness when we become aware of it. Motivational philosopher Jim Rohn so perfectly put it: you can't hire someone else to do your push-ups for you. It's not going to work. You can hire all the trainers you want, but you got to do the work. It's got to be done within you. Others can give you a roadmap, and that is what we are doing this month. It's kind of like a roadmap, little hints and helps, so that we can, no matter what the conditions that exist everywhere are, we can focus on the inner power that we truly are, and we are built for successful living. The success principles, this is from Jack Canfield's book, the whole series I've been basing it on his book, called The Success Principles: How to Get Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. But the thing is, you have to drive the car, and that is, I'm glad that Carol's able to drive the car, but it's a perfect analogy of it. You have to drive the car. She did the inner work, and so we do the inner work, and we're able to drive our cars in life. So last week, we laid the foundation for success by agreeing to, number one, take 100% responsibility for our lives. No one else's. We need to take 100% responsibility for our lives. And two, being clear of why we are here. And so today we look at another one of the principles in his book, transforming yourself for success. Psychologist William James once said, the greatest discovery of our generation is the discovery that human beings, by changing their inner attitudes of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives. And that's what Ernest Holmes meant when he said, change your thinking, change your life. The thoughts. Ernest Holmes says this in Creative Mind and Success: just as the creative power of the soil receives all the seeds put into it and at once begins to work upon them, so mind, divine mind, capital M, must receive all thought and at once begin to operate on it. Thus we find that all thought has power in our lives over our conditions. We are making our environments by the creative power of our thoughts. Everything begins with a thought. That is the whole basis for creation, a thought. And I know that we're trying to address as many principles as we can, because there are 64 principles in his book, but 4 weeks doesn't allow us to do all of that. So today, we're just going to look at one principle. Last week we looked at two. All the talks are on YouTube, by the way, under my name, so just go on there. There's 15 years of talks on there. Go on. So this is success principle number 32, which says, transform your inner critic into an inner coach. I love that one. Did you know that the average person, and I think you do because I've said this before, has many more than 50,000 thoughts a day? Many more, probably something like 100,000 thoughts a day. And most of those thoughts are to you and about you. And 80% of those thoughts are negative thoughts. I'm thinking. I think about this too, and I'm like, oh, I got to do more work and more. It doesn't end. It just is, it doesn't end. It's a constant clearing out and clearing out. And just when you think you arrive at a place, you got to clear out some more. You might be thinking things of, oh, I know I do this. I shouldn't have said that. They don't like me. I'm never going to be able to pull that off. I don't like the way my hair looks today. How many of you have said that? Yeah, anyone? Not the guys, they don't care. I can't dance, said nobody in this group ever. We did a trip around Philadelphia on the boat on Thursday. We were up there dancing. Yeah, you can't keep us down. I'm always late. I know some people that applies to, and they're not here now. We get a laugh out of that, because she's never late anymore. I'm never going to get all of this done. I feel so foolish. So, my friends, thoughts like this, whatever your specific words around them are, control us. They control us. And they make us break into a sweat sometimes. You ever start with a thought, an anxiety attack, of which I've had several, always started with a thought that escalated and escalated and then got blown up. And sometimes it's really good to take a break from all of that, because it literally, those kinds of thoughts built up constantly can literally kill us, kill this physical form. There's an example, I have an example. This is out of Jack Canfield's book, an interesting little story he puts in there. He says, Nick Sitzman, who was a strong, healthy, ambitious young railroad yardman, one midsummer day, the train crews were informed that they could go home an hour early in honor of the foreman's birthday. While performing one last check on some of the railroad cards, Nick accidentally locked himself in the refrigeration boxcar. When he realized that the rest of the workmen had gone home, he began to panic. He banged on the door till his fists were bloody, but no one came. With this knowledge of the facts, he predicted the temperature in the car to be 0 degrees. And Nick's thought was, if I can't get out of here, I'll freeze to death. And apparently, wanting his wife and family to know what happened, he found a knife and began to etch the words on the wooden floor of the car. Things like, it's so cold, my body is getting numb, if I could just go to sleep. These may be my last words. The next morning, the crew slid open the heavy door of the boxcar, and they found Nick dead. An autopsy revealed, this is true, this was in his book, an autopsy revealed that he had frozen to death. He had every physical sign of that. And yet, here's the catch of this whole story. The refrigeration in the unit car was broken. And the temperature inside was really 55 degrees. A little chilly, yes, a little cold, but it couldn't kill him. Nick had killed himself by the power of his own thoughts. Isn't that some story? He convinced him, well, we do this in life. He convinced himself that he was freezing to death. And so he did freeze to death. So I'm very prayerful that no one here has thoughts that strong about anything in their life, and you won't experience anything so dramatic. But we can certainly kill our success, our dreams, little by little, day by day, with negative, limiting self-talk. unloving thoughts about us, ourselves. Our thoughts create a form into which creative substance known as God's energy is poured. It's a good analogy. This is like pouring water into an ice cube tray. When the water is frozen, out comes the cube in the exact shape of the container it was put into, the mold. The water has no choice other than to take that shape. So, creative substance, which is the law, which we talk about in our spirituality, creative substance, the law, takes the mold of it, our thoughts are poured into it. And then that becomes our experience. The law is neutral. It has no other choice but to manifest itself in our lives. Paramahansa Yogananda, founder of the Self-Realization Fellowship, says this in an autobiography of a yogi, famous book. He wrote, since you alone are responsible for your thoughts, only you can change them. And you still want to change them when you realize that each thought creates according to its own nature. Remember that the law works all the time, and that you are always demonstrating accordingly to the kinds of thoughts you habitually entertain. Therefore, start now, he says, to think only those thoughts that will bring you health and happiness. So, what if you learn to pour your thoughts into success? What if you could transform the negative self-talk into positive self-talk? And what if you silence your thoughts of lack and limitation and replace them with thoughts of unlimited possibilities, because that's the truth? And what if you could replace any victim language of your thoughts with the language of empowerment? And what if you could transform your inner critic to your inner coach who loves and supports you in everything that you want, you desire in your life? Well, you can. That's the whole thing. You can. The question is how? Or perhaps we have a new way of looking at it. And most of you know this. You've heard this many times. And psychiatrist David Ammon has named the limiting thoughts we hear in our heads. He gave them a name, ants, A-N-T-S. And it's a good name. Well, it's a good name to remember. Automatic negative thoughts. Automatic negative thoughts. And you, just like real ants, can ruin a picnic. Your ants can ruin your life. And you need to stomp the ants out. You need to get rid of them by first becoming aware that they're even operating in us. Most of the times, we're not even aware of these thoughts that are constantly running. They don't stop. They're constantly running in our minds. Next, we challenge them. And finally, replace them. Replace them with supportive, just like Reverend Carol did, with supportive, affirming thoughts. And specifically, here's what that could look like. The first step is to become aware of them, get off of automatic pilot, just like there are different types of ants, the critters, in the world, so there are different types of ants running in our thoughts, in our head. To help you recognize them, here are some quick little things to say. Well, no, you don't want to say this. This is what you might say. I never get a break. She's always so rude to me. These are the automatic negative thoughts running our lives. My boss or anyone else never listens to me. I'm never going to get that raise. I'm always getting the short end of the stick in life. I've heard many people say that. I never really understood it, but it's the short end. Focusing only, really, on the negative in any situation. Mind reading, oh, I'm good at this one. Making assumptions, right? You make a whole story up about it. I see people walk down the street, I have a whole story. They pass me by, I got a scenario. I got a whole story on that person. I don't even know them. That's what we do. That's what we do in life. If any of these sound familiar to you, then take a few days, if you will. You can even talk them into your phone. Talk this into your phone. Walk around with a notepad. Write down or talk about all these thoughts, and you'll be amazed at how many of them that pour out into our lives. And these are all creating. They're all creating. They're not neutral thoughts. They are creating our lives. And so the second part of that is challenging those thoughts. Now that you become aware of these thoughts, you can challenge them. Is it really true that that person never listens to you? Is that really true? That's what you ask yourself. Is it true that you never get a break? That a certain person is always rude to you? If you can find even one time something that isn't true in those thoughts, you are challenging the ant. You are challenging that thought. In the middle of any situation, you can find one kernel of good. There is good in everything if we absolutely just look for it, pay attention, ask for it. And that whole assumption of, is it really true, that you can ask of yourself. Here's one. I know she hasn't called me back because she's mad at me. Or you ever had, somebody that you don't talk to them for a while. And so you make up this whole story about why they haven't called. She's mad at me. She doesn't like me anymore. He doesn't like me anymore. Oh, he's breaking up with me. All these things that we do in our minds. And we need to challenge them when they come up. Is that true? For sure. Do you know it? If that label that you put on yourself or anyone else, is it the whole truth? Am I stupid? A lot of people have called themselves stupid, which is like, no one's stupid. Well, maybe one or two. In other words, challenge your thoughts. Remember, don't believe everything you hear, and also don't believe everything you think. That's important. And third, replace them with affirming thoughts. A powerful, powerful way to do this is to stop, you've heard this, stop, drop, and roll. So we're going to just change that around a little bit. Stop the thought. The minute it comes in, and you can feel it in your body, stop the thought and just say to it, stop. Drop the thought. Drop the thought. Intentionally, consciously drop that thought and tell yourself, I am forever dropping that thought. I'm not going to think that anymore. And then roll. You roll the thought. Consciously roll the thought into the opposite of what you're thinking. Because if it's negative, you want the exact opposite. My hair look good today, my hair looks great today. But things like that. So you're doing this through the work is you're doing it through your own mind, consciously. And instead of saying, am I going to succeed, we could reframe it. I'm so excited, I wonder how this is going to succeed, because I know it is. I know it's going to be a success.
Yes.
And the why? because we ask ourselves. We know the what, and the why we leave to God. We leave the why to the universe, to the infinite intelligence. That is us anyway. But we don't try to figure it out, because what's going to happen is, you know this, you're going to get something much better when we leave it to, we'll say, God. When you leave it to God, you're going to get something so much better. You don't have to know how it works. You have to know what you want. What is it you want? So I think you get my drift in all of this, because this is how you transform your inner critic to your inner coach. And when you do that, you transform your life, and you will utterly astound yourself. You really will. How amazing we are. So I'm going to end with this quote from Ernest Holmes. So just take this in. He writes this in his Creative Mind and Success book. In the final analysis, we are just what we think ourselves to be. We are big in capacity if we think big thoughts. We are small if we think small thoughts. We will attract to ourselves what we think the most about. We can learn to govern our own destiny when we learn to control our thoughts. This is so easy to understand and so plain to use, he says, that we often wonder why we have been so long finding this out. What took so long? The greatest truth of all the ages, believing, thinking what is believed to be true. Thinking into mind each day that which you wish to be returned in a positive manner. Eliminating negative thoughts. Thinking really uplifting, high vibrational, positive thoughts. Giving thanks to the spirit of life. And he continues, never arguing with oneself or with others. These are steps which, when followed, he says, will bring us to where we shall not have to ask it to be true. For having the demonstration, we shall know. So, this is the second in the series of talks on success, and it's to really be successful in living our lives, to shining our lights, which is very needed right now, very needed, and to be that which we are intended to truly be. With all of our being, we believe this, and we claim this to be true. And so it is.
And so it is.